So the way that people fall in love is very similar to a drug addiction. Okay? The first phase is the excitement and euphoria, right? Where the love interest feels super excited to be with you. And this happens when you feel chemistry with someone. This happens when you have that type of like chemistry from the first time. They call that being in love at the first sight, right? Now, it involves certain pleasure and reward system. This creates a feeling of intense happiness and euphoria. Now, similar to drugs, right? Using addictive substance leads to a surge of dopamine that will create a rush of pleasure and a rush of euphoria. Okay, that's the first step. And you see this all the time in relationships where you meet someone and you feel like you have strong chemistry with them, and all you want to do is spend all your time with them, right? And you don't notice how much you like them until you leave them, right? Until you do things on your own and you realize that there's a gap. The thing is that, just like we're going to talk about later how dopamine receptors work, seeing somebody that you love, seeing somebody you have chemistry with, creates a gap in your heart that only they can fill. Now, why does it create a gap? Well, because in order for you to feel that intense pleasure, you're gonna naturally compare it to your normal life, right? This is the world, right? You're gonna compare it to your normal life. You're gonna say, "Oh my God, this person makes me feel so good that all of a sudden I feel like there's something empty inside of me." So as you can see, liking someone, finding somebody that you like, creates an emptiness that only they can fulfill. Right, and that's, we're social animals, right? We did that because we don't have if we don't do that, we're not gonna fall in love. Now the second thing is obsessive thoughts and cravings, right? You start to once when they're not around, that's when the magic happens, right? That's when you start to imagine them in your minds, right? You start to imagine how they are. You start to exaggerate their traits and diminish their negative traits. In other words, you start to idealize them. And very similar, of early stages of love involves constant thoughts about the partner, a sense of longing, a desire to spend time with them. And addictions experience cravings and obsessive thoughts about their next fix, driving an overwhelming need to use the substance. It's a compulsion. It's something that you deeply desire, and if you don't have it, it'll drive you freaking crazy if you don't have that drug. Now, the next thing that happens is that they start to develop tolerance. This is what tends to happen when two couples stop having sex. A lot of times this happens, right? Over time, the initial high of falling in love can diminish, requiring a deeper emotional bond with the person, shared experiences to maintain the same level of excitement. Now, in this case, you don't have to have shared experiences. All you have to do is just spend time with them in a very simple way. And the spending of time will not come with dopamine. It'll just come with feelings that are just relaxing, right? It's not excitement. You guys are not freaking doing fireworks. It's just simple feelings with the person. And this acclimation, they become family in our minds. We get used to seeing them. And we get used to seeing them in the morning. We get used to seeing their texts. And this habitualness reduces their sexuality, but it increases the emotional connection. Now, similar to drugs, with continual use, addicts develop a tolerance, needing larger doses, where before you just needed this amount of weed, right? Now, you need this amount of weed to get high, right? And this is how the tolerance is developed. Now, the next thing is that you start to develop dependency. This is when you start to realize you love them, right? You might think it's getting boring. You might think that this relationship is getting a little too boring. You see them every day. It's the same thing, and you're kind of like just blah about it. But then one day they exit your life for a very short period of time. And then you realize that you actually miss them. You actually need them. So this is what happens, is that the fourth step is dependency and withdrawal, where the emotional dependency can develop, where the absence of the partner causes discomfort, anxiety, feeling of emptiness. This is similar to a drug, where physical and psychological dependency on drugs leads to withdrawal symptoms when the desire is not available, when the desired substance is not available, causing distress and discomfort. All of a sudden, you start to laser focus on one thing, right? You start to laser focus on getting your drug of choice. And that drug of choice, in this case, is the one that you're with, right? But this desire, in fact, before you saw them like this high in your mind, but because of their absence, they balloon to a larger than life type of like vibe. And that only happens through absence. Right? And so you'll start feeling your thoughts will revolve around them, right? You won't be able to think of nothing else but them. And this is the falling in love process, okay? The next thing is behavioral changes, okay? Love can change one's behavior significantly. Individuals may go out of their ways to please their partners and adapt new habits to align with their partner's interests. And this is where all of a sudden people start getting needy, right? This is Melissa, right? They start getting needy. They start doing anything you want for them, right? You start freaking begging for their attention, right? But this is pleasurable because if they also feel the same, they're gonna find your needy, creepy habits exciting because they're like, oh my God, this person likes me as much as I like them. So when it's a two-way relationships, your needy, creepy habits actually is a good thing, right? So the behavior changes is similar to addiction, where addiction often leads to significant changes in behavior, including prioritizing drug over responsibilities, relationship, and personal health. And this is why when somebody is in love with you, they are not rational people. They're not rational people, right? This is a person meditating. They're not rational. What they are is completely irrational, crazy, loco. Like they act crazy. They make irrational decisions. They start taking risks. They're willing to lose their job for you. You know, they're willing to travel the world just to be with you, right? They're willing to travel the world. They're willing to go to be with you, even if you're freaking in Timbuktu for you. They make irrational decisions when they fall in love with you. And that's why I say anytime somebody's making rational decision, anytime somebody says 2 + 2 equals 4 when they're in love, they're not really in love. When somebody's in love, 2 + 2 equals 100. There's no rationality. There's no reason why they should be with you. There's no reason why they're late to work because they kept calling you on the phone. And that's where it'll go to, they start to neglect other aspects of their lives, and it'll cause them, but this neglection in drug is negative. But this neglection in a healthy relationship is positive. Because the two people become one. The two become one, and they literally start to look like each other. This process, in a negative way, can turn really dark. But in a positive way, this process is what everyone does when they fall in love. They become each other. The problem is that some people are so toxic that becoming them equals becoming a monster themselves. By the way, if you guys enjoy this type of content and you want to make somebody fall in love in your life, and you want guidance from me specifically, not from an AI and not from an assistant of mine, you guys can click on the description down below where it says work with me one-on-one, and you'll be able to learn the strategies of how to become a drug to the person that you're dating so that they can become addicted to you without going straight to hell. Click on the description down below where it says work with me one-on-one, or else I'm closing the channel. Let's continue with the video. Okay, so let me explain to you this concept. I saw this concept in a vision. I keep having these visualizations about desire, right? Because lately I've been having my own problems with desire, right? And it comes in an image that whenever I want something, this is what I see in my mind, right? I see this, right? And this is my life energy. And whenever I want something and I think of it, I think like it's almost like something that fits right in here. Boom. Right? And sometimes you see this image, and I see it as a solid image. These lines mean solidity. But then there are times when I'll think of the same thing, but then when I think of it, I think of it, but it feels more transparent. And because it's so transparent, it just floats away over time. But sometimes when I'm feeling really sad and lonely, these thoughts create, the same thought becomes more solid. And it's almost like it gets like chiseled in. Like it's like it gets stuck inside, right? And this causes you to think of that thought as real. It feels real, it feels desirable, as opposed to a thought that's just fleeting. In other words, a thought that you disidentify with, it just goes away. And because it feels solid, like this, like I said, it feels solid, it feels like it'll never go away because it feels solid. But then what happens is that when you go to sleep with the same thought and you wake up, you realize that this same thought all of a sudden possesses a transparent type of quality. That it almost like that same, the next morning it floats away. Why? Because you resetted your emotions. You slept, and all of a sudden sleeping literally is almost like sleeping disintegrates strong patterns in the mind, right? Or not thinking, right? The thoughts and the emotional reaction to the thoughts creates like the glue. The reaction to this creates the glue. The more you react, the more solid it'll be. The more you become present, the more transparent it'll be. It's natural atrophy for thoughts that feel solid to become transparent over time if you don't act on it and you just observe it. The truth is that meditation gets you to the spot where things become transparent. Even your body becomes transparent, but that's for a whole nother topic. So your whole life, your whole essence, your brain is literally this, right? And each time you have a desire, it creates a gap so that then the body can fill in that gap with a desire, right? Because the capacity for pleasure that you have can only be achieved by creating a deep hole in your mind so that you can feel this pleasure. But this hole that you create is also the source of your pain. Once this pleasure goes away, you'll be left with emptiness. And this is the numbing feeling you feel when you use a lot of drugs or you feel like there's no purpose in life. This is the numbing feeling you have, which is the self that's lost through engaging in dopamine filling behavior. The more dopamine you need, the more of yourself you lose, and the more you'll need it. But the truth is, this is all an illusion. This is all the solidity of the things that you feel like you need to fill in this. It's really just an illusion. And the way you notice it's an illusion by observing that reality. Observing that if you just stay present and you keep observing it, what happens is this would turn into this. And if you keep looking, all of a sudden it'll turn into this. And if you keep looking, it'll turn into nothing, which was the transparency of it. Reacting to it turns it into this. More reacting, which means I want it or I don't want it, turns into more solid. The more you resist, the more it'll persist. But if you just observe it, it'll turn into its nature, which is transparent. Filling that gap with a desire. And sometimes these gaps are transparent, like a fleeting thought or fantasy, or sometimes they're really solid and stick there, right? And so what I want you to understand is that in order to create space for desire, there has to be some loss of self, some unhappiness, right? And this is where some people get addicted to people, that they're so unhappy that when somebody provides any sense of validation, they use their validation to fill this big fucking gap inside of their hearts. And that's how they get addicted to you. But sometimes they like you, but only fleeting. So the way they see you in their minds is going to be more of like a transparent vision of you. It's not going to be solid. It's not going to be, so as a result, it's really it's going to fade away over time. And how do you make it solid? Well, the solidity comes through the emotions behind it. In other words, the more emotion there is behind this desire, the more solid or dense it'll be. It'll have a similar quality to this. When you stop liking someone, all of a sudden the emotions go away, and like similar to this, it loses its density. It becomes more transparent, and you stop seeing them and you stop thinking of them over time, and all of a sudden, it goes from this to just there's a new gap here, and it just fade away over time. But now you're left with this, and this is where a lot of people keep filling up this, where the more unhappy, the more they want a relationship, the more of themselves they don't have, right? And that's what you have to understand. The brain will know. The brain this is very similar to dopamine receptors. Okay, this is very similar to dopamine receptors, where the more unhappy you are, the more of a crater there is, and the more things you need, which is from the relationships, drugs, to fill in this gap. And sometimes you have a stimulus, someone or something, that completely fills in this gap, and you become highly addicted to them. And the more you do it, the more solid it becomes, and the brain all of a sudden begins to like click it in there, hold it in there. And that's what we have. And some people, their whole lives, their whole soul is just freaking empty. And these people tend to be ones who are prone to addiction, prone to relationships that are one-sided. And how do you fill these gaps? How do you recover this? Because at the end of the day, what you want is this. You want this, where you may have some tiny gaps here and there, but your happiness comes from your state of being, not from whatever fills this in. How do you get here? Time heals these gaps. The more you live, the less you try to fill it, the more it'll be filled. To the point where it'll be filled, you'll see a scar tissue, but it'll be filled. And how do you do that? Through spirituality, through a meditation practice, right? And over time, you might feel, and what you have to understand is that this is also an illusion. The illusion that you are empty. And so what it does is that sometimes when you feel a certain pleasure, the pleasure can be so fucking incredible. This, for example, like a big pleasure, for example, this, that it requires this much space in you. So in order for you to feel this pleasure, you have to lose this much of yourself. Okay?
So a lot of you guys have been asking me, how can I purchase all of your courses in one go? Well, if you guys want to purchase all of them, you guys can join the Mindful Attraction University, people. Yeah, that's right. And in this, you'll be able to access all of my courses for $3.99. Initially, if you purchase all of my courses, Emotional Mastery, Psychological Game of Attraction, my new course, The Feminine Woman, Natural Chemistry, Charisma Blueprint, Nice Girl, you guys can purchase all of it for $600, but with the bundle deal, you guys can purchase it for $3.99, or you guys can purchase it in 3 easy payments of $125, people. Yeah, that's right. Or you guys can purchase it with the bonuses. So you not only do you get the courses, but the bonuses, and that comes down to $7.99, or 4 easy and mindful payments of $199. Now, these bonuses are not regular bonuses. These bonuses are legit, almost like courses within a course, right? So you guys can just click on the description down below and explore the types of bonuses. For example, I have bonuses on how to get over your ex, how to become more creative, how to, especially in the feminine woman, I have a bonus about how to penetrate the mind and how to speak in a way that gets people to do what you want them to do. Like, it's honestly one of the craziest sections that I've ever made, because most of these courses, people, I come up with those ideas in meditation retreats. Nobody goes to the extent that I go. I go to meditation retreats to create these courses. There's a 14-day money back guarantee. If you don't like it, just ask me for the money back within 14 days, and I'll give you all the money back. Father Alex has never rejected a money back offer if I offered it. So, and if you guys already purchased one of my courses, for example, and you guys want to get the bonuses while getting a discount, you know what I'm saying? I have discount codes for people who purchase my courses. So if you purchase my courses, just send me a private message. Or if you work with me one-on-one, I'll give you a big discount for the courses. And there I can help all of you guys understand that this is a movement. Most people never knew this type of knowledge before. And I am trying to empower women across the world and liberate them from these negative and one-sided relationships through these courses. So hopefully you guys can spread the message and help other people out. And I'll see you guys inside. Or else I'm close to the